What is the nature of reality? Buddhist views on illusion and truth. Is this world real? Understanding illusion in Buddhism. Have you ever wondered if the world you're living in is truly real? This question isn't just for philosophers sitting in libraries. It touches something deep in all of us. Like when you feel a strange emptiness, even though everything seems fine. Or when a beautiful moment ends too quickly, leaving you with a quiet sadness. The Buddha didn't ask us to blindly believe anything. He simply invited us to look directly at our own experience, without assumptions, without clinging, without fear. To help us do that, he taught about 2 levels of truth. The first is called conventional truth, sammutisaka. It's the world we live in every day. When you say this is a chair, or I feel cold, you're speaking from this level. It's not wrong, it's useful, and it works. If someone throws a rock, you'll feel pain. If someone smiles at you, warmth will arise. Buddhism doesn't deny this level, it respects it. But the Buddha also pointed to a deeper layer, which he called ultimate truth, Paramatha Saka. This is the truth beyond names and labels. It asks, what is this moment, really, when we don't add stories to it? What remains when we stop saying mine, me, and should have? This is where the word illusion becomes important. But let's be clear. Buddhism doesn't say the world is fake or doesn't exist. The idea of illusion in Buddhism is not the same as in Western thought. In Western philosophy, illusion is often seen as a problem of knowledge. Thinkers try to break past false appearances to find some eternal, unchanging truth. In science, illusion is something the brain creates. Our senses misinterpret light, space, or time. It's a matter of description, what's really going on beneath our perception. But in Buddhism, illusion is about how suffering arises. We see things, feel emotions, hear words, and then we cling to them, hoping they'll last or fearing they'll leave. We treat what's temporary as permanent. We treat what's changing as stable. We treat what's empty of self as if it's me or mine. This misperception is the root of suffering. The goal isn't just to understand this, it's to be free from it. The Buddha described this condition using 3 marks of existence, present in every part of life. 1. Impermanence, anicca. Nothing stays the same. Not your body, not your thoughts, not the people you love. Everything is in motion, rising and falling, moment by moment. 2. Unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. Because everything changes, nothing can give us lasting satisfaction. Even joy becomes pain when we try to hold on to it too tightly. The search for lasting happiness in a changing world always ends in frustration. 3. Not self, anatta. This is perhaps the hardest and most liberating truth. What we call I is not a fixed thing. There is no little person inside you making decisions. What we call self is just a flow, a pattern of sensations, thoughts, habits, memories, and reactions. Let's bring this closer to everyday life. Think of a moment when you got angry. At that time, the anger felt so personal, like you were angry, like you had been attacked. But where is that anger now? It came, burned hot, then faded. Now think of being criticized. It hurts because we feel that a solid me has been insulted. But where exactly is this me? Can you point to it? This is how illusion works. We suffer not because things appear, but because we believe they belong to us. The Buddha expressed this in a few short but powerful lines in the Dhammapada. All conditioned things are impermanent. All conditioned things are unsatisfactory. All things are not self. These aren't just poetic lines. They are observations, simple, direct, and universal. When we begin to see these truths not as beliefs, but as reality showing itself right now, something shifts. We don't need to escape the world. We just need to see it clearly. The engine of illusion, how reality works. If everything around us is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and lacking a solid self, then why does it all keep happening? Why do things arise, change, and fade away in this endless stream of experience? What keeps this cycle moving? The Buddha gave a precise answer. He didn't point to a god, a soul, or a cosmic force behind it all. Instead, he pointed to a law, paticca samuppada, or dependent origination. This isn't just a theory, it's a direct observation of how reality works, just like gravity. It says simply, when this is, that is. When this ceases, that ceases. Everything arises because of conditions, and when those conditions fall apart, what arose disappears too. Nothing stands alone. A thought, a habit, a relationship, even your sense of self, all of these come from conditions coming together. Remove the causes, and the result fades. Add the causes, and the result appears again. This is why things are always changing. It's why we can never find lasting satisfaction in them. And it's why there's no separate, permanent me behind our experience, only a process unfolding. So how does this law relate to suffering? The Buddha pointed to a specific pattern, a chain of 12 links, that explains how suffering arises. But even without memorizing all 12, we can understand the key fuel that keeps the cycle spinning. It begins with ignorance, avijja. But this ignorance isn't stupidity. It's simply not seeing clearly, not seeing impermanence, not seeing that what we call me is just a bundle of shifting conditions, not seeing the three marks of existence. We live in a trance, mistaking the impermanent for permanent, and the impersonal for personal. And from this blindness comes the second fuel, craving and clinging, tanha and upadana. When we don't understand the true nature of things, we react. If something feels good, we crave it and cling to it. If something feels bad, we crave for it to go away and cling to the hope of its absence. Either way, we're holding on. But the world is like a river, always moving. Trying to grasp it creates friction. That friction is suffering. And now we reach a strange, beautiful paradox. If there's no solid self, then who suffers? Who is feeling pain, clinging, hoping, fearing? Here's the answer. There is no fixed sufferer. There is only the process of suffering itself. It's like walking. There is no walker apart from the act of walking. There is just walking. Or like thinking. There is just thinking, not a thinker sitting behind it all. In the same way, there is just the process of craving, reacting, feeling. There's no one behind the curtain, just conditions playing out. This insight isn't cold or mechanical. It's incredibly freeing. It means you're not doomed by some fate or stuck in some identity. You're part of a pattern. And if you understand the pattern, you can step out of it. The Buddha didn't describe this as a prison, but as a path. As he said in the Mahahathipadopama Sutta, one who sees dependent origination sees the Dhamma. One who sees the Dhamma sees dependent origination. To see this law clearly is to see reality itself, not as something happening to you, but as something happening through you. You are not a powerless victim in this world, but you are not a fixed self either. You are part of an unfolding dance of causes and conditions. And the moment you stop clinging, the moment you stop feeding the cycle with ignorance and craving, you change the whole flow. That's not just philosophy. That's the key to freedom. The ultimate truth, what lies beyond the illusion. If our ordinary life is shaped by ignorance and craving, an endless stream of impermanent events, then what lies beyond it? If what we experience daily is just a conditioned illusion, is there something unconditioned, something real? This is where the Buddha's path turns toward what he called the ultimate truth, a reality that is not created, not born, not dependent on anything. But to approach this truth, we need to understand a concept that is both liberating and often misunderstood: emptiness, or sunyata. When people hear the word emptiness, they often imagine a blank void, a cold nothingness. But in Buddhism, emptiness is not a lack of meaning. It is the very key to understanding how reality works. Emptiness means that things do not exist independently or permanently. They arise only through conditions, and because of that, they are empty of a separate fixed essence. Picture a wave on the ocean. You can see it. It rises, moves, and crashes. But is it something separate from the water? No. The wave is just the water in motion, shaped by wind and energy. It exists, but it has no independent identity. This is what it means to be empty, not non-existent, but interdependent, fluid, and free from clinging to a solid self. In fact, emptiness is not a negation, but a space of infinite possibility. Because a seed is empty of a fixed, predetermined outcome, it can grow into many forms depending on conditions. Because your mind is empty of a fixed self, you are free to respond wisely instead of reacting blindly. Emptiness makes change, growth, and liberation possible. This brings us to a profound insight. Emptiness and dependent origination are not two separate ideas. They are two sides of the same truth. Because all things arise based on causes and conditions, they are empty. And because they are empty, they can arise and pass away in this dynamic, living world. But the Buddha didn't teach this just to give us a clever way to think about reality. He taught it so we could be free. When this truth is not just understood in thought but directly seen, it opens the door to Nibbana, a freedom beyond all illusions. Nibbana is not some heavenly place we go after death. It is the extinguishing of the inner fire, the fire of greed, hatred, and delusion. It is the complete cessation of ignorance, the ending of the mind's restless grasping and resisting. It is not an altered state. It is the natural peace that arises when we stop trying to manipulate reality and simply see it as it is. That's why the Buddha spoke of Nibbana with great precision and restraint. He knew it was beyond all categories, beyond the dualities of existence and non-existence. To try to explain it is like trying to describe the taste of honey to someone who has never tasted sweetness. Any description is just a finger pointing to the moon, not the moon itself. Yet he gave us a glimpse, a few words to point toward this unconditioned reality, not as a fantasy, but as a real potential. There is, monks, an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned. Therefore, an escape is visible for the born, become, made, conditioned. This is not a promise of reward. It is a statement of fact. The unconditioned exists, not elsewhere, not later, but here, now, beneath the surface of all things. It is the peace that becomes visible when we stop clinging, stop chasing illusions, and begin to see clearly. The path to it is not a leap to another world. It is a quiet return to what was never separate in the first place. The path to freedom, walking the middle way. If ignorance and craving are the roots of our suffering, and nibbana is the end of that suffering, then the real question becomes urgent. How do we walk the path from delusion to clarity, from bondage to liberation? The Buddha was not merely diagnosing the human condition. He offered a precise, methodical path for healing it, what he called the Noble Eightfold Path. This is not a list of moral commands or spiritual rituals. It is a complete training of the human heart and mind. It transforms how we see, how we act, and how we think. When lived fully, it turns suffering into wisdom and confusion into peace. To better understand this path, it is often grouped into three essential trainings: sila, morality; samadhi, concentration; and panya, wisdom. Like three parts of a bridge, they support one another and work together. The first training, sila or morality, is the solid ground beneath our feet. It includes right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is not about rigid purity or moral judgment. It is about choosing not to harm, neither others nor ourselves. When we speak with honesty and compassion, act with integrity, and earn a living in ways that do not cause suffering, our hearts begin to settle. Guilt fades. Restlessness softens. A mind free from remorse becomes clear, like still water. Morality is not the end of the path, but without it, nothing else can stand. From that stable ground rises the second training, samadhi or concentration. This includes right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Here, the work becomes more inward. We learn to quiet the noise in our heads, to steer our thoughts toward what is skillful, and to sustain attention with gentle persistence. Mindfulness is not just a technique. It is a way of being fully awake in each moment. When the mind becomes concentrated, it gains strength. It is no longer scattered by every craving or fear. Like a magnifying glass focusing sunlight into fire, a unified mind can cut through illusion and see what was previously hidden. And finally, with that clarity of mind, we arrive at the third training, panya, or wisdom. This includes right understanding and right intention. Wisdom is often misunderstood as merely intellectual knowledge, but in Buddhism, wisdom is experiential. It's seeing for ourselves the impermanent, selfless, and unsatisfactory nature of all things. It is recognizing that our grasping, our insistence that things be other than they are, is what binds us to suffering. Right understanding gives us the map, but it is right intention that turns us in the direction of freedom. This entire path is radically different from belief systems based on dogma. It shares much with science in its emphasis on direct observation and verification. But instead of looking outward to measure the world, this is a science of the inner world. The laboratory is our own mind. The experiments are our actions and our awareness. The goal is not knowledge for its own sake, but liberation. The Buddha described this eightfold path as the middle way, a path that avoids the extremes of sensual indulgence on one side and harsh self-denial on the other. It is a way of balance, of clarity, of peace. In his very first discourse, he declared, "Avoiding both these extremes, monks, the middle way realized by the Tathagata, producing vision, producing knowledge, leads to calm, to direct knowledge, to self-awakening, to nibbana." This path is not about becoming someone better or holier. It is about removing what is false until what remains is simple, clear, and free. Beneath all our confusion and fear, there is already a seed of awakening. The Noble Eightfold Path is how we water that seed, not with blind faith, not with force, but with sincerity, patience, and insight, step by step, moment by moment, walking our way home. The bridge from understanding to awakening. A profound question often arises near the end of this path. If there is ultimately no solid self, no fixed me or you, then why should we care about anyone at all? If life is empty of inherent essence, what is the point of compassion? Why love? Why help? Why serve? This is not a challenge to Buddhist practice. It is the very doorway into its heart. Compassion in Buddhism is not a commandment issued from above. It is not an obligation or a virtue to be polished. Instead, it is the natural fragrance of wisdom. When one truly sees through the illusion of a separate self, the boundaries between I and you begin to dissolve. The idea that I could thrive while you suffer, or that your joy is irrelevant to mine, no longer makes sense. Every being is part of the same field of dependent conditions. The pain of another is no longer theirs. It is simply pain arising in the great web of life to which we all belong. Just as the left hand instinctively rushes to soothe the injured right, the wise heart responds to suffering with compassion, not out of duty, but out of clarity. It is not forced. It is simply what love looks like when the illusion of separation ends. In this way, wisdom and compassion are not two paths, but two wings of the same bird, the bird of awakening that flies beyond suffering. But understanding this intellectually is not enough. You can memorize every teaching, quote every sutta, and perfectly explain the concept of emptiness and still suffer. You can describe impermanence in eloquent words, yet continue to be trapped by anger, fear, or grief. This is the gap between knowing and seeing, between reading the map and walking the land. Real transformation happens not when we know that thoughts and emotions are impermanent, but when we directly observe them change, moment by moment, inside our own experience. Imagine anger rising like a wave of heat in the chest. If seen with wisdom, it no longer feels like your anger. It becomes just energy, just sensation, just a temporary pattern arising and passing. There is no need to suppress it or fight it. When you no longer believe there's anything solid to cling to, the clinging lets go on its own. Liberation, in this sense, is not a heroic effort. It is a natural consequence of seeing clearly. So how do we learn to see? The Buddha gave us a single powerful tool: mindfulness, known in Pali as sati. It is simple, but not easy. It is the quiet act of paying full, kind attention to this moment, just as it is. Not analyzing, not controlling, not judging. Just knowing, gently and directly, what is happening, whether in the breath, the body, the mind, or the heart. With mindfulness, your own body and mind become your laboratory. You no longer need to rely on belief. The teachings begin to unfold not as doctrine, but as direct insight. The three marks of existence, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self, become your living reality, not abstract philosophy. And the first step is astonishingly humble. Just sit for 1 minute. Feel the breath come in. Feel the breath go out. Don't try to deepen it. Don't try to stop thinking. Just rest in the bare knowing that it's happening. This gentle, honest attention, unpolished and sincere, is the beginning of the path. It is the seed of wisdom. It is the doorway to freedom. The Buddha himself described this path of mindfulness as the most direct route to awakening. He called it the one and only way. This is the direct path, monks, for the purification of beings, for overcoming sorrow and lamentation, for the ending of suffering and grief, for reaching the right path, and for the realization of nibbana, namely, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. In the end, reality is not something to be argued over, but something to be experienced. The teachings do not demand blind faith. They ask for courage, the courage to look deeply, to stay present, to walk the path for yourself. The end of suffering is not in the future. It is not somewhere far away. It is here, now, in this breath, in this awareness, waiting to be seen.